I've always felt out of place in this family since I was young. My father is a financial tycoon, and my mother is an international movie star, but I have an average mind and ordinary looks. You could say that extremes meet. My brother, on the other hand, excelled in all aspects, morally, intellectually, physically, artistically, and practically. He held his first solo art exhibition at the age of 4, entered the Tsinghua Peking University Youth Program at 8, and was ranked among the top 10 most handsome faces globally by the time he was 15. I wanted to be jealous, to resent, to crawl in the shadows, but in the end, I chose to make peace with myself. After all, the ancestral graves can't keep emitting green smoke forever. The days passed by in a lazy, aimless haze, until the day the internet-famous prodigy girl showed up at the door. The nurse in the delivery room admitted it herself. They accidentally switched us at birth. I'm the real daughter of the Smith family. You're so ordinary. How could you possibly be Mom and Dad's daughter? Today I will reclaim everything that belongs to me. Rose came alone, yet she carried the aura of an entire crowd. Her words were so convincing that they plunged our entire family, no, me and the other family of 3, into deep thought. My indifferent father, switched at birth. Gorgeous Mom, how would I know? I was busy counting stretch marks after giving birth. Didn't I hand the child over to John? The poker-faced brother remained silent for 3 seconds before coldly uttering, I was only 3 years old at the time. Gorgeous Mom fell silent for a few more seconds before continuing to shift the blame. But you loved holding the little ones so much, and you kept asking if you could share such a fun toy with your little girlfriend. Baby isn't my girlfriend, but every time she sees me, she sweetly calls me Mom. I was on pins and needles. Rose's face didn't look good either. Watching my mom and brother digress further and further, I couldn't help but stand up and interrupt. Dad, Mom, brother, look at my face, and then look at hers. Don't we look more like a family? She pointed at me on the sofa. I touched my own plain and unremarkable face and nodded in agreement. Since childhood, the praises my brother has received include but are not limited to handsome, good-looking, and the spitting image of Dad. When it comes to me, it's just one line: this girl looks so good. It's quite disheartening. Not to mention, I've always been a top student with excellent grades, but from what I know, she has always been at the bottom of her class, and even her college diploma was bought. Rose continued to present evidence. Hearing this, I lowered my head slightly in shame. Ever since starting school, my brother came in first every time without a doubt. I never had any disputes. The teacher refused to believe it and gave me extra tutoring, then ended up in the ICU with intracranial hypertension. In her dazed state, she held my hand tightly, still persistently asking, what exactly is their relationship? I felt deeply guilty and, after much reflection, decided to mend my ways. On the night before the exam, I burned the midnight oil, tying my hair to a beam and pricking my thigh with an awl to stay awake, memorizing the entire math textbook, and this time, I became the first person in the school to score 0 on the exam despite filling the paper with mathematical formulas, making me famous throughout the school. Thinking of this, I turned to my parents and brother with a grave expression. Is it possible, perhaps, that you are the real family? My parents fell into deep thought. My brother's gaze was grave. Rose was still shouting, Mom, Dad, don't you believe that I am your daughter? I've been wandering alone outside for 18 years. And now that I've finally come back, how can you not believe me? Just as the atmosphere was growing increasingly tense, Wendy, who had been standing in the shadows, spoke up. Sir, Madam, young master, miss, actually, isn't there a technology called paternity testing now? The paternity testing process went quite smoothly. The test results will be available in a month. Rose was unhappy and started arguing with the staff. Why do we have to wait a month for the result? Because we process cases in order of queue number. Do you know who I am? A citizen. Who gave you the courage to speak to me like that? The state-owned enterprises. The staff member remained expressionless. Rose was so angry she stomped her feet. I was so embarrassed I could dig a hole with my toes. People gradually gathered around, and I couldn't stand it anymore, so I walked over, grabbed her arm, and tried to persuade her. Why not just wait? It's only a month. Before I could finish, Rose shook me off. Shut up. Of course you'd love to squat in the magpie's nest for another month, but I absolutely won't give you that chance. She shook me off and immediately grabbed the lab technician's white coat, speaking with full authority. I order you to produce the results today, or face the consequences. The consequence was that Rose earned herself 3 days in detention. 3 days later, Rose came to visit again. She requested to stay in the house, claiming she wanted to experience the warmth of family that she hadn't felt in years. The indifferent father, Wendy, prepare a room. Rose was overjoyed and her eyes turned red. My parents have long recognized my identity in their hearts, and that's truly wonderful. From now on, I will bring joy to their lives and spend every day with them. She glanced at me provocatively and said loudly, I want to make up for the companionship I missed in the past. I turned my head away, holding back my expression. Companionship. Since I can remember, I woke up every day in a 500 square meter room and had breakfast at an 8-meter long dining table. The regular members of the household were Wendy, Uncle Bob, my brother who came home on weekends, and the 2 Dobermans in the yard. Loneliness and coldness were the labels of my childhood. In my youth, what I loved most was gazing up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, perfectly embodying the melancholy of youth angst literature. My social media posts were all like, money can't buy love and companionship, and those who understand don't need to ask, and those who don't, why bother asking? Of course, this behavior came to an abrupt end during the New Year's Eve dinner when my brother screenshotted my posts, enlarged them proportionally, and turned them into a looping slideshow of quotes to play at the dinner table. I don't want to relive that cringeworthy memory a second time. I shed a tear of sympathy for Rose. Her dream is destined to remain unfulfilled. However, my stunningly beautiful mother laughed heartily, clapping her hands repeatedly, and excitedly chimed in, That's so well said. I also hope to make up for the regrets of the past. You're so beautiful. I must dress you up as an absolutely breathtaking little princess. An absolutely breathtaking little princess. Hearing this, my brother and I almost simultaneously took a step back, wanting to speak but hesitating but wanting to speak. However, watching my mom excitedly pulling Rose along like a young girl, my brother and I exchanged a glance. Our open mouths closed again. I have so many beautiful clothes that have never been worn. Now I've finally found a model. It's really wonderful, Mom. If you're willing, I'd love to be your model forever, really. Oh, you're so sweet. I'm so touched I could cry. It's wonderful to have you. Rose was so delighted she forgot herself. After a while, she glanced at me out of the corner of her eye. Mom, have you never dressed up sister before? But then again, since she's not your biological daughter, of course you wouldn't be as close as real mother and daughter. It's just like those 2 dogs in the yard by the gate. Only real mother and daughter can be so affectionate. A fake will never become real. Rose went on and on, becoming more and more explicit. Look at how they snuggle up together. It's like a reflection of our family. I couldn't help but remind her, both Big Yellow and Little Black are male. Rose's smile froze. Me, I was spayed over a decade ago. Rose's face turned a myriad of colors, but soon, Rose's expression returned to one of smugness. She was eagerly pulled upstairs by my mom, and before leaving, she didn't forget to shoot me a triumphant, challenging look. Without noticing the sympathy in my eyes, wish her luck. Lunchtime, there were still 4 people at the dining table, me, my brother, my mom, and her, dressed up like a dopamine doll, luxurious gowns, exquisite jewelry, and top hats, not haute couture, but top hats, looking at Rose with her 8-tiered cake-like headpiece and makeup that made her look like a medieval ghost. I couldn't help but feel immense sympathy, from childhood, as an international film queen. My mother is dedicated to creating the most beautiful doll. Unfortunately, I am of average talent and tend to be lazy, which always makes her hesitate. Although my brother is exceptionally gifted, he perfectly inherited my father's aura as a financial tycoon. From the time he could remember, he learned to intimidate with just a look, leaving my mother defeated every time. However, I know that even though my mother has quieted down, she has never given up. She has a whole collection of dolls and even uses my father's name to order life-sized silicone dolls. This matter once made it into the tabloids as a high society scandal. Snapping out of my thoughts, I looked at Rose, who was so tightly cinched by her corset that she couldn't sit down and had to eat standing up. When she reached for a dish, the 8-tiered cake on her head wobbled precariously. When she lowered her head, the heavy powder on her face fell into her bowl. My brother. It's not even Christmas, and we've got a Christmas tree standing here. I usually don't laugh unless I can't help it. My mom immediately became displeased. Isn't it pretty? Just like a doll. Her peach blossom eyes blinked and blinked. My brother, dolls don't need to breathe. But she's almost suffocating too. My mother felt guilty. She looked at Rose with concern, but I had no idea what Rose, whose face was already purple from holding her breath, was thinking. Faced with my mother's rare show of emotion, she forced herself to perk up and managed to squeeze out a smile that was even uglier than crying. "No, I'm fine, don't force it," I kindly reminded her, but she didn't appreciate it and even mocked me. "You just don't understand. A parent's love for their daughter is as heavy as a mountain. What I carry isn't a burden, it's my parents' profound love." As soon as she finished speaking about her profound love, a crisp crack echoed in the air. Rose's expression began to contort, and her body started to tremble. Finally, under the impact of the 8-tier cake, the entire person toppled backward, crashing down with a deafening roar. What followed was a chaotic scene of people and objects in disarray. As expected, a parent's love is as heavy as a mountain. When Rose returned from the hospital, my father had also come back. I watched as Rose, wrapped up like a mummy, was escorted upstairs by my parents. Silently, I tilted my head back, gazing at the sky at a 45-degree angle, lost in thought. "Miss, please don't overthink it. After all, you've lived with the Smith family for 18 years. Wendy walked over to me, draped a blanket over my shoulders, and spoke in a comforting tone. I straightened up, slowly shifting my gaze to her face, and said with a serious expression, "Wendy, I thought it through. The nurse who swapped me and Rose back then was a master at what she did." Wendy froze, her expression complicated. I raised my hand, placed it on her shoulder, and continued. "She calculated that Rose and the Smith family's birth signs were incompatible." Wendy's mouth fell open. "She's only been back twice and has already become like this. If she had stayed at home for 18 years, could she have survived to adulthood? There must be a mastermind who switched me in to take the fall for her." After resting at home for a few days, Rose finally noticed something was wrong. At the dining table, she questioned me. "Why is it that I see you every day?" "Because it's not the weekend." I served myself a bowl of soup without looking up. "On the weekend, you'll see one more person. Where are Mom and Dad?" She was indignant. I took a sip of soup and thought for a moment. Turkey, France, Tokyo, or Paris. Her face darkened, and she scolded me for being crazy and reciting lyrics. I spread my hands, my expression helpless. "I'm telling the truth. After all, financial tycoons are everywhere. And national film queens are all over the country." But Rose couldn't accept it, staring at me intently, and then her eyes turned red. "The pitiful look is very much like Little Black when he was young. When I first picked him up, he also had that same pitiful, injured demeanor, but after giving him a toy ball, he happily chased it all over the yard. But that toy ball has been played with by Little Black for several years. If I give it to her, Little Black might mind, right?" I pursed my lips and tentatively asked, "How about you come work with me?" Rose burst into tears. Rose didn't know what method she used. That evening, my parents and brother actually all came back. The 5 of us, along with 2 employees and 2 dogs, crowded the living room, beginning the first family meeting I had ever witnessed in my life. Rose started, "Dad, Mom, I hope to become your real daughter." My parents exchanged a glance. "Has the appraisal report come out?" my mother asked, even picking up the calendar to check. "Has it been that long already? It feels like I just left home yesterday." My indifferent father frowned and began scrolling through his computer emails. "We haven't secured the 3-month project in the Southern District. The planning department is a bunch of incompetents." The poker-faced brother, 3 days, 18 hours, 37 minutes. My dad and Mom put down what they were holding and breathed a sigh of relief in unison. Rose looked even more aggrieved. "Father, what I mean is, since I've finally returned, I hope to take on the responsibilities that a daughter of the Smith family should bear, not like her, who, at such a young age, idles around waiting to die." Rose pointed at me. My brother understood. "You want to be the heir." His tone was cold, his narrow eyes fixed on Rose, the insight in his gaze making her somewhat breathless. Rose said seriously, "All the children of the Smith family are the same. I just want to share the burden and become a source of pride for Mom and Dad. Just like you, brother. Dad, believe in me just this once. I've always looked up to you and aspired to be like you. Please give me a chance to prove it." I couldn't hold back and quickly covered my mouth. "Ahem," Wendy and Uncle Bob reminded me from behind. I quickly hid my poorly concealed grin again, and Anna continued to lower her presence. Rose went on, talking about the loneliness and solitude over the years, and the urgent desire to find a sense of belonging, tears streaming down with sobs. My mother was moved. "Old Smith, the child just wants a sense of recognition. How about, my father still frowned, exuding a very authoritative aura. At this moment, my brother spoke up, I have no objections. Hearing my brother say this, my father finally relented, all right, Uncle Bob, arrange the lessons for her tomorrow. Rose was overjoyed. She looked at me with a condescending expression. I lowered my head and let out a deep sigh. Young people, she has no idea what she's about to face. The first day of scheduling classes, Rose is crying again, watching her tiptoe and still not see the end of the books and workbooks. Her little brain is about to shrink. Uncle Bob stands by, his expression unchanged. Miss, starting today, I will hire teachers from various fields to provide you with one-on-one tutoring. Everything will follow the young master's rules, but since the young master has been studying since childhood, his progress will naturally be faster than yours. However, you don't need to worry. I have already arranged a systematic learning plan to ensure you can catch up quickly. Today's subjects include finance, management, market analysis, planning, piano, guzheng, yangqin, German, Arabic, Spanish, astronomy. Wait, Rose couldn't bear to listen any longer, her lips trembling and tears seemingly about to fall at any moment, yet, she still clung to a stubborn, desperate hope as she asked, why do I need to study astronomy, Uncle Bob? Not only that, but you also need to learn homemaking. The children of the Smith family are all well-rounded and excel in every field, Rose, but she has so much free time. Rose excitedly pointed at me, who was munching on chips while binge-watching a show, looked up in confusion and met Rose's reddened eyes, answering with full confidence, I'm just lazing around and waiting to die. Rose's face turned as red as a pig's liver. From then on, Rose started waking up at 5 a.m. every day. After washing up and having breakfast, she would first practice the Yangqin for an hour, then study German for another hour. After that, she would begin a full day of professional training in finance and other related subjects, with an additional hour of piano practice in between. Her classes would continue until 10:30 p.m. The next day continued. Perfect. Rose used to complain that she only saw me at home every day. Now, she sees many people every day, but she no longer sees me. There was no time to talk about enjoying the pleasures of family life, because she was already on the verge of collapsing. In the end, the incident concluded with Rose, exhausted from overwork, falling to the ground and causing a secondary injury to her already fractured ribs. She lay in bed, her face pale and her breathing faint. I stood by the bed, trying to comfort her kindly. Nothing in the world is difficult for one who gives up. She stared at me, her eyes glowing green. I handed her a spicy strip. She was moved to tears. She just couldn't speak. Her chest heaved violently for a long time, and all I could hear was the rasping sound from her throat. My arm was getting a little sore. Just as I was considering whether to withdraw my hand, my poker-faced brother actually came back. Brother, Rose started crying as soon as she saw my brother, tears streaming down like pear blossoms. Even I, a straight woman, was moved by the sight, but my brother acted as if he didn't see it at all, with his hands in his pockets. He uttered the most cringe-worthy words in the coldest tone. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Rose broke down, seeing her lying on the bed looking utterly defeated. I couldn't bear it. I cleared my throat softly to ease the tension. How come you're back? Get online. My brother was brief and to the point. Fortunately, I understood immediately, but my face was full of refusal, just about to use a stomachache as an excuse to escape. But the other person interrupted my plan. Hurry up. My face twitched. No choice. Little sisters are always the good servants of their older brothers. Not even I could escape unscathed. So, under my brother's icy glare that could freeze someone to death, I resignedly put down the spicy stick packet, pulled out my phone, and tremblingly tapped open the game app. Familiar players or random match, peaceful development or mindless farming. I've accepted my fate. Just as I opened the game, Rose's voice cut in abruptly. Bro, wanna play a game? I can play too. Can you take me along? I looked up at Rose in disbelief. If I could, I would definitely raise my hand and shout for her to stop messing around, but Rose had already taken out her phone in front of us, opened the game interface, and with a crisp, game start, a smug expression spread across her face. Bro, my stats are really good. Support at the king level. I can definitely carry. My brain is way better than someone else's. My hand, holding the edge of the phone, trembled slightly. Seeing that neither my brother nor I said anything, Rose's eyes immediately reddened again, her voice choked with sobs. Brother, I am also your sister, even if we didn't grow up together. Blood is thicker than water. I don't want to break up this family. I want to join it. Can you please not push me away? I listen, my heart filled with mixed emotions. 10 consecutive losses. My heart remains unruffled, for I have grown accustomed to it. Years of living together have given me a deep understanding of my brother as a man. My brother, he may seem cold and hard to get along with on the outside, but deep down, he's heartless and impossible to connect with. He's got a sharp tongue and a critical flaw. What bad luck. It's just plain unlucky. You can't say his skills are lacking, and you can't say his positioning is off. But if you team up with him, you're guaranteed to lose 10 matches in a row. Later, I could only blame it on his mouth, which seemed to be equipped with a jet engine. Every time, he'd flame his teammates into going AFK, while the enemy team went on a rampage. If you're lacking motherly love, I can give it to you. There's no need to treat the enemy team like you're raising your own mother. What kind of gear is the support building? A shroud for the dead, is it? You throw a handful of rice at your phone, and even a chicken has better movement than you. Are you paralyzed from the waist down or all four limbs, playing as Yao and dancing on your own team's graves? In the phone screen, that Yao was already being flamed into wandering the map randomly, unable to find her way back. My brother cast a cold glance toward the head of the bed. Rose's face was ashen. I clutched my phone and quickly retreated outside the door. If you scold her today, you can't scold me anymore. I knew Rose was trying to win over Mom, Dad, and my brother. Unfortunately, all failed. She sent a WeChat message to her mom. Mom, your new hit drama where you play the strong female lead is absolutely amazing. I wrote a 3,000-word essay online analyzing your character, and every moment was a highlight. Then, this essay became the target for anti-fans attacking her mom's character collapse, and her mom was trending on social media the next day. She tidied up her father's study. Dad, I've been very diligent lately, studying the documents you left in your study every day. I've also helped you clear out a lot of unused materials. As a result, several of her father's important projects collapsed due to incomplete documentation. She made lunch for her brother, a homemade mango curry beef brisket rice. Then, my brother, who is allergic to mangoes, curry, and beef brisket all at once, was taken to the hospital by an ambulance. Cold-hearted dad. How much longer until the test results come out? Glamorous mom, it's only been a month and 15 days. Expressionless brother, I don't think I'm that hard to kill. I am even more convinced of my view. The nurse who made the mistake might not have been trying to protect Rose, but rather the other 3 members of the Smith family. In the end, the family of 3, after much reflection, decided that regardless of the test results, they would arrange for Rose to study abroad in Argentina. Argentina, it is the country farthest from ours. The day she got the news, Rose cried very sadly and pointed at me indignantly. What about her? She called me out, shouting at the top of her lungs, aren't you going to kick her out? This time, it was my dad, my mom, and my brother who were left dumbfounded. Yanli's mom, why should we drive Anna away? She looked at Rose with a face full of confusion. Seeing this, Rose became even more frantic, pointing at me and stomping her feet in anger. She's not your daughter, I am your daughter, I'm back, so shouldn't she leave? Only one of us can stay. The glamorous mother was puzzled. Why do children have to choose? Can't adults have both? The indifferent father said coldly. Both are registered in the Smith family's household. The expressionless brother sneered. The Smith family can afford to raise both. I was moved. I always thought that ordinary me simply didn't fit in with the family. But now they've firmly chosen me. Just as my eyes were welling up with tears, almost about to spill over, I heard my mom say, she's so slow-witted, and we've raised her to be idle and aimless. How could she survive out there? We have to take responsibility for this. I forced back the tears that were about to spill from my eyes. I said my brother's sharp tongue had to come from someone. Today, I finally found the source. But Rose was not satisfied. She pointed at me and insisted that our parents choose between us, threatening to cut ties with them if they didn't. Cold dad, are you threatening me? Glamorous mom, if we cut ties, can you still be my model? Expressionless brother, one less person to fight for the inheritance. Rose froze, seemingly not expecting my parents to react so indifferently. In her mind, they should have been filled with regret and panic, if not immediately agreeing, at least caught in a dilemma. Only I truly understand, in wealthy families, familial bonds are often thin. I heard that my father, in his climb to the top, even schemed against his own younger brother. My brother and I grew up in the Smith family, seeing the nanny more often than our parents throughout the year. In their hearts, their careers were always more important than us, so I can only say, Rose takes herself too seriously. Now, she has become the clown herself. A call from the appraisal center saved Rose. They informed us that the report was ready ahead of schedule and asked us to pick it up. Dad, Mom, and my brother are in one car. Out of a surge of compassion, I chose to ride with Rose, but I never expected that this act of compassion would lead to trouble. Rose and I were kidnapped. The one who kidnapped us was Wendy. Rose was stunned. I was stunned too. What stunned me wasn't that Wendy had kidnapped me, but that the ordinary-looking Wendy, at 50 years old, had managed to take down over 20 of the Smith family's bodyguards with just a spatula. Wendy, I called out to her. My eyes reddening, Wendy froze for a moment. Her gaze toward me was very complex. Miss, I'm sorry, I'm just following orders. Please, don't blame me, you're so skilled. Yet that year when we were 10 and chasing after our brother, you couldn't even help me squeeze through to get a personalized autograph. Wendy, I'm sorry, I had to hide my abilities. Me, traitors go to hell. Rose, are you all crazy? Is this the time to talk about this? Wendy, why did you kidnap me? Didn't you tell me that I'm the true heiress of the Smith family? Upon hearing this, Wendy's face turned cold again. She stared at Rose, who was tied up in the chair, and said through gritted teeth, back then, Jack killed the one I loved, and I swore I would get my revenge on him. So, I swapped you, who had just been born, with the daughter my beloved man had, and waited for the right time to reveal the truth, making Jack's entire family suffer. You have no idea how long I've been waiting for this day. Rose and I were uncharacteristically united in our silence. Her method of revenge was to endure hardships as a nanny in the enemy's home, secretly swapping the child her beloved man had with Jack's biological daughter, and finally choosing the right moment to expose the truth, allowing the biological daughter to come forward and claim her family. The world has turned into a shape I can no longer comprehend. I hesitated to speak. Wendy, are you feeling even the slightest, tiniest, most minuscule bit of satisfaction from revenge right now? Wendy broke down. She yelled at me. I never expected Jack's family to have no regard for blood ties at all, so I kidnapped both of my daughters. Let's see who he chooses. The air fell silent for 3 seconds. I cautiously reminded her, am I not the daughter of the man you love? When Wendy was left speechless, Dad, Mom, my brother is here, and Uncle Bob, don't come any closer. I've strapped bombs to all of them. Wendy stared at him intently, unleashing years of pent-up hatred. Jack, you are utterly heartless, not even sparing your own brother. If it weren't for your schemes, Jack would never have boarded that fatal flight. My father frowned and said, you are avenging Sam. Wendy replied, that's right. Back then, to get back at you, I swapped your children. The daughter you've raised for 18 years should actually call you uncle. Bet you never expected that, did you? You plotted against Jack, but ended up raising his daughter. My mom was so scared she cried. The child is innocent. Wendy, if you want revenge, go directly to him. She pulled my dad forward. My brother shot a glare. You sure know how to cut out the middleman. I wanted to laugh, but holding the bomb in my hands limited me, so I could only continue to remind her, Wendy, look at me. I am the only legacy your lover left in this world. Wendy hesitated for a moment, then her eyes regained their ruthless determination. I can see that you don't have much affection for your biological daughter. Instead, you care more about the daughter you raised for 18 years. So today, I will kill her right in front of you. I want you to live the rest of your lives in agony, Wendy said, and was about to press the button in her hand. Wait, at the critical moment, Uncle Bob spoke up. Wendy, look at who I am. The world has finally become a madness I can no longer comprehend. My parents are not my parents. They are the real heiress's parents. My brother is not my brother. He is the real heiress's brother. Wendy is not a housekeeper. She is my family's enemy. Uncle Bob isn't the butler. He's my nominal second uncle, but biologically my real father. When Uncle Bob dramatically revealed a completely different face, I began to question my firm belief in materialism for the first time. In the next moment, Wendy cried out in disbelief, Brother Jack, Uncle Bob is my second uncle whom I've never met, and who was cruelly schemed to death by my father. According to my nominal second uncle, back then he wasn't schemed against. He was just tired of the family's internal power struggles. So he deliberately set up a fake death scenario with my dad. After living freely for a few years, he returned incognito and, under the identity of Uncle Bob, became the butler by my father's side. Wendy was stunned. So, there's no grudge, no, then, what do my 18 years of planning count for? Counted as you being love-struck. The kidnapping was resolved. There was still one more important matter. The Smith family living room. So, I'm your daughter. I looked at Uncle Bob on the sofa. No. My nominal second uncle, seeing his face, which was even more handsome than my father's beneath the mask. I didn't have the courage to get closer, feeling ashamed of myself once again. Second uncle, no, you're not my daughter, you are my elder brother's daughter. It was my turn to be shocked. At that moment, my brother took out the paternity test results and waved them in front of me and rose. I clearly saw the section showing a 95% DNA match between me and Jack. You are my sister. My brother spoke coldly, his gaze sweeping over me, his tone as disdainful as ever, although, it really doesn't seem like it. Wendy, how is that possible? She didn't believe it. I did switch the children back then, she emphasized, but I swapped the child back. Uncle spoke again. Case solved. According to Uncle Bob's explanation, back when Wendy swapped the children, she secretly switched them back again. But to protect Wendy all these years, he has remained silent. Rose. So I am actually your daughter. Her eyes held disbelief, and also, a strong sense of resentment. It seemed she resented the fact that she was only the daughter of a housekeeper. Second uncle, no, you're not my daughter either. Rose's face stiffened once again. Second uncle sighed. My wife had an affair long ago. When I faked my death, she claimed you were a posthumous child just to get more of my inheritance. So, whose child you are? I don't know either, of course, if you're willing. You can call me Godfather. Rose seemed to be frozen in place. Her eyes were wide open, her lips trembling slightly. After a long, long time, I couldn't bear to watch any longer and kindly stepped forward to gently comfort her. If you want to cry, just cry. Wow, Wendy was taken away by her second uncle. Rose agreed to study abroad in Argentina. As for me, I'm still living the same old life. Just idling away and waiting to die. However, the atmosphere at home was different from before. The aloof father no longer flew around all day, the glamorous mother no longer slept in hotels, and the expressionless brother switched directly from boarding to being a day student. Wendy and Uncle Bob were gone, but my dad and mom were there instead, and surprisingly, my dad actually took the initiative to organize a family picnic. I don't understand. Actually, you don't need to come back to stay just for me. Expressionless brother, we've reflected on it, and from this incident, we realize we haven't given you enough sense of security. Me, it's actually okay. Expressionless brother, don't think I don't know. You were already planning to leave before the results even came out. I froze, staring at them, and swallowed hard. You all knew that I had secretly packed all my luggage, ready to step aside and run away at any moment. Anna, in our hearts, even if you were ordinary, we still believe you are our biological daughter. My mother turned to me with a look of affection I had never seen before. She said, I have never doubted it. My heart felt as if it had been struck by something. In fact, the moment Rose appeared, I was certain I was the imposter. After all, I never truly fit in with this family. They are like glamorous white swans, while I am just an ordinary ugly duckling. I thought, I don't know why, but my nose feels a bit sore. I was just about to speak when I heard the man in the driver's seat start talking. After all, no family's ancestral grave can keep emitting green smoke forever. I close my eyes. Well, my anxious heart is finally at peace. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. When I was 3 months old, my biological mother exchanged me for a piece of meat with my current mother. As she left, her tears fell on my face, salty and bitter. Baby, I'm sorry. But I really can't afford to raise you. I am the child my mother is most proud of. Compared to my 4 frail brothers, she left the hope of survival to me. I am very grateful to her, compared to the days of being displaced. My current mother loves me like a precious treasure, but sometimes, I still think of her. Unfortunately, even my mom doesn't know where she went now. My mom's name is Judy, and she's a bright and cheerful girl. Sometimes she would pat my head and roll around with me, saying, it feels so good to be a mom without the pain. It's a pity she always forgets that I'm still young, and being pinned down on the bed by her is still quite uncomfortable. But that's not important. I buried my face in her long hair and showed a relieved smile. Mom named me Snow, saying I was as white as snow, her Snow White. Oh, by the way, I also have a father. He is Mom's boyfriend. Although they are not married yet, Mom has already decided on him. She was holding me with effort and seriously introduced me to Frank. This is Snow, my baby. If you want to be with me, you have to accept her. Frank frowned and looked at me for a long time before finally nodding in agreement. Dad doesn't like me. Every time Mom isn't around, he orders me around and looks at me with disdain, as if I were some kind of germ. I don't want to make things difficult for Mom, so I try my best to please him. I behave well during meals and never make a mess. When he washes the dishes, I follow behind him with a cloth. When he goes to the bathroom, I wait by the door with toilet paper. After several attempts, Frank said helplessly, "Snow, go play over there, don't disturb me." I lay dejectedly on the sofa, my eyes fixed on him. As soon as I saw him about to enter the bedroom, I darted in after him. Dad must be going to get the laptop. Unfortunately, the laptop was too heavy, and I accidentally dropped it on the floor. Snow, Frank walked in, gritting his teeth. I quickly hid behind the curtain. "You can't see me, you can't see me." Frank grabbed the back of my neck and pulled me out. "Don't think that just because your back is turned, I won't know it was you causing trouble." My face flushed red as I turned back and stuck my tongue out at him. He paused for a moment, then sighed. "Wait until your mom gets back to deal with you." I breathed a sigh of relief. Mom would never deal with me like that. When Mom came back, I was being punished by Frank, squatting in the corner. Hearing the door open, I was about to turn my head, but Frank glared at me, and I sheepishly turned back. "How was your day? Don't even mention it. Our department head was acting crazy today." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mom dejectedly take off her coat and slump lazily on the sofa, complaining to Frank about her day at work. I don't understand, but I know Mom is in a bad mood. When she's in a bad mood, she wants to pet me. I shuffled my little steps, trying to sneak over to Mom while Frank wasn't paying attention. "Snow, stay down." Frank's authoritative voice came through, and I immediately hung my head. Mom burst out laughing. She walked over and crouched behind me. "Snow, what did you do wrong to get punished?" I shook my head. "I don't know either. I just wanted to help." Frank explained the situation from the side, and Mom wrapped her arms around me, saying, "Dad is very smart and doesn't need Snow to take care of him." I pursed my lips and said nothing. Dad isn't smart at all. Just now I saw him slip at the bathroom door and almost fall into the toilet, because I felt wronged. I lay on Mom's bed at night and asked her to coax me to sleep like she did when I was little. "Snow." Frank glared at me for taking his spot. I stuck my tongue out at him and hid myself under the covers. "Let her go out and sleep on her own, just this once. The little one is feeling wronged. She's already so grown up. Where am I supposed to sleep?" Accompanied by their voices, I fell asleep. In my drowsiness, I felt a pair of gentle hands lift me up, gradually moving me away, until I woke up on the cold floor and realized that Frank had thrown me out while my mother was asleep. "This is too much." I drew circles on the spot. I sniffled with grievance, still reluctant to wake my mother, and returned to my small bed. The clean, soft blanket couldn't smooth away my grievances. I buried my face in the blanket, peeking with open eyes at the tightly closed door of the master bedroom. Frank simply doesn't care about me. I look at the unfamiliar street, and there is no one familiar in the crowded crowd. He lost me on the way to buy breakfast. I sat on the ground in anger. I remember my mother once told me that if I got lost, I should count in place until I reached 100, and she would come to find me. Two, what comes after two? My ears were a bit itchy, and I shook my head irritably. The crowded throng pushed me off balance. "Mom, if you don't show up soon, I might really get lost." A little boy appeared beside me, carrying his small backpack. He asked me in a mature tone, "Can't you find your mom and dad either?" I turned my head away. "They'll come looking for me in a while." The little boy sighed. "You're mute. No wonder you were abandoned." I was so angry my ears turned red. I wanted to scold him, but my mother said cursing isn't ladylike. "But you're so fair-skinned. Why don't you come home with me? I don't mind that you're mute." So annoying. I shifted my body to the side, turning my back to him. Before long, a middle-aged man and woman came over and took away the chattering little boy. I still sat here waiting. I wonder if my mom will be worried since I haven't returned home. At this time every day, I would have already eaten and been lying on the sofa basking in the sun. Alas, The wind outside is a bit cold. I stood up and spun around in place a couple of times. The sun gradually rose from the horizon, and the cold wind carried a hint of warmth. I watched the pedestrians hurriedly passing by on the street, none of whom looked familiar to me. I don't know how much time had passed. Snow. My mother's call came from afar. I stretched energetically and dashed toward where my mom was coming from. I knew she would come looking for me. Mom was running out of breath, with tears still wet on her face. Thank goodness, my baby, you're not lost. Joy blossomed on her face as she bent down and hugged me tightly. Her tears falling on my face, salty and warm. I don't like tears. Why is Mom crying? Did Frank bully her, this jerk? When Mom brought me home, Frank was eating porridge. Seeing us come in, he guiltily put down the spoon. You're back. I told you Snow was just playing around, and now she's back, isn't she? Mom motioned for me to sit on the sofa. Without a word, she walked up to Frank and flipped the bowl of porridge right onto his face. The warm porridge slid down his carefully styled hair and onto his wrinkle-free shirt. Judy, have you lost your mind? For her sake, you treat me like this. Frank was helplessly furious. I tilted my head and looked at him, not understanding why he was so agitated. After thinking for a moment, I figured he probably didn't like drinking porridge this way. So I hurriedly picked out a relatively intact piece of tissue from the wastebasket in the bathroom and handed it to him. Frank, I told you before we got together that Snow is my family. Even if you don't like her, you have to accept her. Otherwise, let's break up. Frank gave me a conflicted look, then reluctantly took the tissue and wiped his face carelessly. I was just joking with her. I was wrong, and I won't do it again. He softened his tone, then glared at the tissue in his hand. Snow, where did you get this tissue? His roar was almost loud enough to lift the roof. I quickly hid in the bedroom. Men are truly incomprehensible creatures. After that, Frank treated me much better. I also forgave him for losing me. Lately, I might have been eating too much, and my stomach feels a bit uncomfortable, so I don't feel like moving around. My mother observed me for a few days and then took me to the hospital. I really didn't want to go to the hospital. As soon as we reached the hospital entrance, I struggled desperately, wanting to escape that place. Mother gently pressed my shoulder. Snow, if you don't behave, Mommy won't like you anymore. Alright, I don't want Mommy to dislike me. It's nothing serious, just a bit of indigestion. Just massage her stomach more when you get home. A magnetic voice whispered in my ear, and I jolted, turning to look. The man lowered his gaze and looked at me tenderly, his long eyelashes casting a small shadow on his eyelids. What should I do? Mom humbly asked him for advice. His jade-white fingers gently pressed and kneaded my stomach. And I let out a contented sigh. Mom, I think I'm in love. When I left, I looked reluctantly at the doctor who was seeing me off at the door, and then, unsteady on my feet, I fell directly to the ground. Mom, it hurts. Let the doctor take another look at me. I stared at her with pleading eyes. Mom burst out laughing. You little rascal, you can't take your eyes off a handsome guy. If we don't go back now, I'm going to get angry. As she spoke, she came over to pull my arm. So I had no choice but to stand up and slowly follow her home. Frank's work became increasingly busy, and his income grew higher and higher. We moved from a small house to a big one. The new home was so spacious that I could run back and forth several times in the living room, but I still really liked the little house. Every time we go for a walk, I always sneak back when Mom isn't looking. Every time I run off, Mom gets really angry. After a while, I stopped running around and just obediently followed behind her. Actually, I'm just afraid that if we move, my birth mother won't be able to find me. I have a lot of energy every day, but Mom is also very busy with work. I can only lie on the sofa, waiting for her from sunrise to sunset, just for those 2 intimate hours with her in the evening. The hourly housekeeper comes every day. I'm very well behaved, and I don't move around when she gives me a bath. It's just that every time water splashes on my head, I can't help but shake it off and spray the housekeeper's face. I thought life would continue like this, plain and uneventful, until one day Frank brought home a strange woman. That woman was very beautiful, with a head of curly red hair and bright red lips, like the Black Mountain Demon from my mother's stories who eats dead children. I was afraid she would eat me, even though I'm not a dead child. Is this Snow? The aunt had a strange smell on her, which I found very pungent, and I accidentally sneezed several times in her face. Ouch. She stepped back, took out a tissue with disgust, and wiped her face. Nina, don't get too close to Snow. Frank pulled her hand and made a shooing gesture at me. Go play somewhere else. His tone was unprecedentedly cold. I hesitated for a moment, didn't cling to him as usual, and silently walked away with my head lowered. I felt a bit upset inside, though I didn't know why. Who is this aunt? Why can she come back with Frank? What are they doing? Fighting? I don't understand. Nina noticed that I had been staring at them and tugged at Frank. Let's go to the bedroom. Frank didn't care. It's just, oh, I don't want to. As soon as that sickeningly sweet voice came out, Frank softened and immediately followed Nina into the bedroom. The sun stretched my shadow long, and I stared at the warm yellow light on the ground, motionless. After a good while, the two of them finally emerged from the room, stuck together like conjoined twins. I tilted my head and observed them. Usually, this is how I act clingy with my mom. Did his mom abandon him too? So he found a new mom. Snow, be good and don't tell mom, and I'll give you your favorite sausage. Frank took out my favorite sausage. I took a bite and turned away, ignoring him. What could she possibly say? Nina said with disdain, Snow is very smart. Frank sighed, then put his arm around her and left. Mom came back very late today. I was waiting right at the door, and as soon as she opened it, I pounced on her. She giggled and dodged my advances. No, Snow, Mommy can't hold you right now. She smiled with pure happiness. Why? I leaned in close to her face, then stepped back 2 paces and circled around her. I felt that Mom was very different from before today, as if she had become even more beautiful. I was extremely confused. Ding 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 ding. She waved the ultrasound report in her hand at me. Mom is pregnant. You're going to have a little brother or sister. Aren't you happy? Her gentle eyes sparkled like stars, her long, curled lashes trembling slightly, betraying her nervousness. Of course, I'm happy. I wanted to rush over, but then I hesitated and stayed where I was. Mom is pregnant. I can't bother her anymore. She noticed my excitement and gave me a quick kiss. Snow, did you sneak some food today? She glanced at the sausage wrapper in the trash. Strange. How did you open it? I felt guilty. Mom only allows me 1 sausage a day, and I already had mine this morning. It's all Frank's fault. Don't sneak food again next time, okay? Mom stroked my hair, not angry at all. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She busily prepared a large table of food, then sat on the sofa holding me while waiting for Dad. Snow, if only you could talk. My baby would surely be a little chatterbox angel. I silently lowered my head, my nose tingling with emotion. Then she wrapped her arms around my neck and asked, do you prefer a little brother or a little sister? I looked at her flat belly. It must be a boy, she muttered to herself for a long time before falling asleep on top of me. I didn't dare to move. After what felt like a long time, she suddenly sat up straight, glanced at the clock in confusion, picked up her phone, and dialed Frank's number. I'm sorry, baby. I have a dinner appointment tonight, so I might be back very late. Frank's apologetic voice came from the other end. Mom nodded understandingly. It's fine, you're busy, I don't have anything important anyway. After hanging up the phone, she stared at the pile of dishes on the table and shook her head, then served herself a bowl of soup and slowly began to drink it. Frank came back in the early hours of the morning. He quietly turned on the light and saw his mother sleeping on the sofa. Feeling heartbroken, he walked over, but I really disliked the pungent smell on him, so I stood in front of my mother, baring my teeth at him. You're back. The commotion was too loud, and it woke my mother up. She patted my head and told me to go back to sleep. Frank sat down reluctantly. Why didn't you go back to the room to sleep? I was afraid you'd feel sick from drinking too much. She brushed the hair away from her cheek and looked at him gently. It's a good thing you didn't drink too much. Frank was taken aback, then awkwardly averted his gaze, only to spot the ultrasound report lying on the coffee table. You're pregnant. He looked at his mother in pleasant surprise, gripping her arm in disbelief as if wanting to shake her, but then quickly let go. Afraid of hurting her, his mother nodded with a smile. He immediately sprang up from the sofa. That's wonderful. I always thought you. He was so emotional he choked up. Then, as if he had made some kind of resolution, he knelt in front of his mother. Judy, don't worry. I will treat you well for the rest of my life. I will never let you down. His reddened eyes were filled with tears. We have to hold the wedding first. No, we should get the marriage certificate first. Then have the wedding. He began to ramble incoherently. Mom held his hand. I'll listen to you, honey. The word, honey, brought tears to Frank's eyes. After that, I never saw that aunt named Nina again. Mom's belly grew bigger day by day. Severe morning sickness and her increasingly clumsy body left her with no heart for work. Soon, persuaded by Frank, she resigned from her job to focus on preparing for childbirth. The wedding was scheduled by her mother to take place after the baby was born. She wanted to present her most beautiful self at the wedding. Not in a heavily pregnant state, Frank respected her decision, so the two only registered their marriage. Her mother had no family, and Frank's family lived too far away to come. Usually, only I was there to keep her company. I would drag her out to play when she was feeling down and cooped up at home. Although there were many times when I only cared about having fun myself, Mom also enjoyed watching me go wild. I secretly caught a few glimpses of that Dr. Uncle. Sunlight streamed through the hospital's transparent glass, casting a glow on his straight nose bridge and his milky white skin. My eyes stung from the bright light, and I couldn't stop the tears from streaming down the corners of my mouth. As the due date approached, Mom's prenatal checkups became more frequent. Each time, I would press myself against the large glass door at the hospital entrance, waiting for Mom to come out. I never liked the smell of disinfectant, but the scent of Mom always brought me comfort. That day, as my mother and I walked out of the hospital with the test results, a woman wearing sunglasses stopped her. It was Nina. She had lost her former charm. Her red hair dyed blonde, and her entire face, covered in thick foundation, couldn't hide her exhaustion. "Judy, right, let's talk." I twitched my nose. She also had the pungent smell of disinfectant on her. I followed them to a coffee shop. Mom doesn't like the smell inside the coffee shop. So we sat at an outdoor table by the entrance, 2 glasses of milk. Nina smiled and gently touched her stomach. After all, neither of us can drink coffee. Mom didn't speak, and she didn't mind either, continuing on her own. I didn't want to come originally, but Frank didn't want to take responsibility, so I had no choice but to make this trip. He and I are work partners, soulmates. His work and life can't do without me. It's just a shame that he had you first. So you became his responsibility. Originally, he wanted to break up with you, but at that time you were pregnant. He wanted to cut ties with me, but still thought of me when you were unavailable. You should step aside. Forcing someone who doesn't love you to stay by your side is painful for both you and him. Mom took a sip of milk and spoke calmly. "Miss Cooper, in what capacity are you saying these words? Trying to justify your role as the other woman with the word true love? You're insulting the very concept of love. I've always believed that relationships are a matter between two people, so Frank should say these things to me himself, hiding behind a woman and letting her take the lead when things get tough. How did a man who hasn't been weaned off the teat attract you?" Mom paid for the milk. "This one's on me. If you have what it takes, I'll be waiting for you to treat me to your and Frank's wedding banquet." I didn't know what expression Nina had on her face, so I quickly followed in Mom's footsteps. Turning the corner, Mom slid to the ground, holding her stomach, as a clear fluid flowed out from beneath her. She was sweating profusely, looking at me tenderly. "Snow, say hello." My heart was racing, my mouth wide open but unable to make a sound. I frantically grabbed people on the street, and many were frightened by my appearance, stepping back, too afraid to come closer. I was so anxious, crying like a trapped animal. But the way they looked at me made me feel like some kind of monster. They desperately pulled their hands back, afraid of being touched by me. I don't understand why they clearly saw my mother but didn't come over. They could have called an ambulance, yet they just pointed their phones here, filming something. I tilted my head back and opened my mouth. The feeling of the knife cutting through my windpipe left a metallic taste in my throat, but I still couldn't make a sound. A sense of powerlessness washed over my body. "Snow," a gentle, heavenly voice rang out. Uncle Doctor came against the light, standing straight in front of me. "Uncle, look at Mom quickly." I helplessly looked toward where Mom had fallen. Uncle followed my gaze. His expression changed. He rolled up his sleeves and rushed over, picked up Mom, and ran outside. Just across the street was the hospital where Mom had just had her prenatal checkup. So many people passing by saw a pregnant woman lying there, yet they remained indifferent. Uncle ran very fast, and I kept chasing after him. Panicked footsteps, hurried breaths. Mom tightly grabbed the Dr. Uncle's arm while still comforting me. "Don't be scared, Snow, Mommy will be out soon." Sweat rolled down the tip of her nose, forming shapes like teardrops. I didn't want to hear her talk. I just wanted her to be okay. I was stopped by the doctors at the door. They wouldn't let me in, and others didn't like me either. They all looked at me with strange eyes. wanting to approach but not daring to. I don't know why there was such a complicated look in his eyes, and when I came to my senses, I realized there were 2 drops of blood on my face. It was Mom's. I stood blankly in the corner, waiting for Mom to come out. But from dusk until evening, she never appeared. The doctor uncle came out and patted my head to comfort me. Good girl, your mother is fine now. She gave birth to a little brother and is very weak, so she'll need to stay in the hospital for a while. I gently nuzzled his palm. When he tried to take me home, I took 2 steps back. He smiled, didn't insist, and left. The dew of the cold night dampened my hair, and as I blinked, the dewdrops fell like tears. The faint light of dawn pierced through the darkness, and I finally saw a familiar figure approaching from across the street. Frank. I sprang up from the ground in a flash, pouncing on him fiercely and glaring at him with rage. My sharp teeth ground together in my mouth, and I wanted to tear him to shreds with my fangs. Snow. Frank's eyes were bloodshot with exhaustion. Let go of me, Judy is still inside. The doctor said she's suffering from postpartum hemorrhage. My tears instantly fell to the ground, freed from my entanglement. Frank scrambled and stumbled as he ran toward the hospital. Mom, would she die? My lips trembled. Death seems to come more easily to me than to others. I once saw my homeless brother on the street. His eyes were lifeless, and he was so hungry that his movements were sluggish. I was anxious to have him come over, wanting to give him my food, but he didn't even have the strength to make it to my side. His emaciated body pressed against the cold ground, a faint glimmer flickering in his eyes. In my next life, I will have parents who love me. The hurried passers-by couldn't see his small body, and the trash cans on the street emitted a foul odor, yet I could only stand there in a daze, unable to make a sound. When Frank came out of the hospital again, he took me home. I was hungry and cold, and I was afraid that, like my brother, I would never see my mother again. The first thing I did when I got home was to eat desperately. The cold, hard food slid down my throat, stuffing my empty stomach like force-feeding a duck. I suddenly stood up. Snow, Mom will be back in a couple of days. You don't need to wait at the hospital. She'll worry if you get lost. Frank helplessly called out to stop me. The doctor said a knife cut a big hole in her stomach. She's so afraid of pain. She'll cry. Before I could even step out of the house, Nina appeared at the door with tears in her eyes, looking pitiful. She's the one who made Mom cut her stomach open, and she dares to come. My whole body tensed up as I looked at her with hatred. Snow, let her in. Frank gave Nina a dark look. I stepped aside reluctantly, still staring at her intently. Ah, June. Nina had just opened her mouth when Frank slapped her. Nina, I said we're done. You've crossed my line. Frank stepped forward and grabbed her by the neck. I gave you money to return to the family. Why do you still have to bother her? Nina's face flushed red, and it took her a while to break free from Frank's grip. She coughed desperately. Frank, I've been with you for 2 years. You can't just abandon me by saying you're returning to the family. You're happy she's pregnant. But what about me? I'm also carrying your child. Why should I be the one to get an abortion? Nina, Frank roared. I always thought you were a smart woman who knew her place. I never expected you to be so foolish. Have you ever seen a man, driven by lust, actually abandon his wife? Someone like you is only good for a casual fling. Bringing you home would be an insult. The blunt words struck Nina like a heavy hammer. She took 2 steps back, her face pale, and asked, Is that really how you see me? Her tone was surprisingly calm, as if the hysterical outburst earlier had never happened. During your startup phase, I racked my brains to bring you clients and gave my all for you and the company, and you treat me like a prostitute. Her words were soft, carrying the confusion of someone just waking from a dream. Frank closed his eyes and pointed toward the door. Get out. Nina said nothing more, gave him a deep look, and silently walked away. Suddenly, I felt I couldn't understand Frank anymore. His gloomy figure almost merged with the shadows in the corner. His straight back slightly bent with a weathered curve. Snow, are you still going out? He asked softly, and upon seeing me sitting on the floor without moving, he closed the door. After that day, Frank became much quieter. He would hurriedly prepare food for me every morning, rush to the hospital, and sometimes come back at noon to hold me while we basked in the sun on the balcony. He stroked my head, his eyes filled with an overwhelming pain. I didn't understand him, and he didn't understand me. But strangely, we were still able to coexist peacefully. On the day my mother returned, Frank and I went to the hospital together to pick her up. I circled around her, wanting to hug her, but then remembered the big hole in her stomach and fearfully pulled back. Snow, come and see your little brother, Mom's gentle voice rang out, and I immediately trotted over. My little brother is so tiny. I feel like I could eat him in one bite. The little brother is really ugly, all wrinkled like an old man. His little mouth puckering as he's about to cry. Honey, the baby is still young, and Snow carries germs. Frank blocked my way to the little brother for the first time. I looked at him sadly. Do I really have germs? I'm clean every day, and there's an aunt who comes to give me a bath, because there's a little one at home. My nails are trimmed short and smooth, so I don't accidentally scratch my little brother. My eyes are watery. I'm afraid Mom will kick me out. Will I end up like my brother? Collapsing next to a dirty trash can and never getting up again. Snow is not dirty. Mom, lying half on the bed, reached out to me, stroked my head, and said, "It's you who is dirty, Frank. I don't want to see you. Get out of my world. You disgust me." Her pale face carried a resilient strength. I had always thought Mom was fragile, but I never expected her to bear all her thorns and confront Frank so fiercely. Frank took 2 steps forward, his hanging hand clenching and unclenching several times before he sighed. "Don't be angry, I'll leave, so you can focus on your postpartum recovery." The door opened and closed. A tear slid from the corner of Mom's eye. After Frank left, Mom ate and slept as usual, with no noticeable difference in her daily routine. The newly hired maternity nurse is diligent and responsible, taking good care of the younger brother, making him fair and chubby. Frank's parents called several times to plead on his behalf and even offered to come take care of Mom and the child, but Mom refused them all. I thought Mom wouldn't be sad, but one night when I got up, I saw her hiding on the balcony secretly smoking. The crimson glow flickered faintly at her fingertips, and her slender fingers trembled slightly due to the way she was holding the cigarette. I struggled a bit to push open the balcony door, and my mother looked at me in surprise, the ash falling from her fingertips. "Snow." I stared at her without moving. She looked back at me, her eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't understand. After a long time, she stubbed out the cigarette and held me tightly in her arms. The faint mint scent of her lady's cigarette enveloped me, and warm, wet tears fell on my hairline. I heard her first sob in days. "I really hate this." She held me tightly around the neck, and I didn't struggle. Just leaned gently on her shoulder, letting her vent her emotions. It wasn't until her movements tugged at the wound on her lower abdomen that she snapped back to reality. "Sweetie, I swear this is the last time I'll be this vulnerable." I lifted my head and grinned at her. My mom was back. Unfortunately, Mom's good mood didn't last long before Nina showed up at our door again. By her side was a burly man. Seeing Mom's weak state, Nina's pale face was filled with deep hatred. "Because of you, my child was aborted, you bitch. Are you satisfied?" With full malice, she lifted her chin toward Mom and said, "This is the woman, cousin. Teach her a good lesson for me. Not only will I help your son with his job, but I'll also give you extra money." The man rushed menacingly toward my mother, and I charged forward in fury, baring my sharp fangs at him. "It's just a dog. Kick it a couple of times and make it scram." Nina pointed her blood-red nails in my direction, and all the fur on my body stood on end. "You wouldn't dare. The police will be here soon." My mother roared at them. "What can the police do? My dad won't let us suffer even a little bit of injustice." Nina gave her a smug smile. "Wah." I desperately opened my mouth, and a sharp, hoarse sound escaped from my lips. The nanny hid in the bedroom with my younger brother, trembling in fear. Only my mother and I faced them. I was terrified. Normally, even the sight of a kitten with its sharp claws would scare me. Don't be fooled by my robust Samoyed build. I'd jump onto the bed at the sight of a cockroach. The uncle across from us was frightening. His dark face wore a cruel smile, and he held an iron rod in his hand. The cold, gleaming white light of the rod filled me with dread, but I couldn't back down. My mother was right behind me, and I had to protect her. From the moment I was born until now, my world has been black and white, except for this one bright, vivid smile, clear and distinct, that I would give my life to protect. The man mercilessly swung the iron rod. I dodged a few times, baring my teeth and letting out a low growl. Hunting is an animal's instinct. Even though I'm a coward, I can still find an opening in the chaos. Just as the man turned to dodge my body, I suddenly tilted my head and bit down hard on his thigh. The taste of rust kept coming, and I clenched my teeth, refusing to let go. "Damn it. You didn't say they had such a big dog." "More money, you have to pay more," the man shouted, and after getting Nina's confirmation, he swung the iron rod in his hand with a sinister laugh. Once, twice, the iron rod struck my spine heavily, and I heard the sound of bones breaking, but I couldn't let go. Sharp pain surged through my entire body, my strength slowly fading, until the man forcefully pried my jaw open. With a crack, I could no longer hold on to him, and my body fell limply to the ground. In my blurred vision, he limped step by step toward my mother, Snow. My mother was crying so hard nearby that her voice was nearly gone. Nina, unfortunately, I was too weak, only leaving 2 tooth marks on his carotid artery before I fell powerlessly to the ground. Bastard. The man let out a furious roar, raised an iron rod, and smashed it hard onto my head. Blood stained my snow-white fur and flowed into my eyes. I no longer had the strength to get up. The light faded in my eyes, the sound of sirens pierced my slightly twitching ears, and I let out the breath I had been holding. Thankfully, someone had come to save Mom. I tried my best to stick out my tongue toward Mom. Her crying was too loud, and I didn't have the strength to comfort her anymore. But my fur is no longer snow-white. Will Mom still love me? Afterward, Judy, the moment the police broke down the door, I stumbled and rushed toward Snow. My Snow, with her tongue slightly extended and pupils dilated, had stopped breathing forever. A stream of blood gathered into a trickling flow, draping her in a crimson coat. A buzzing sound filled my ears. Amid the arguments and shouts, I heard Nina and her older brother's defense. Officer, it was the dog that bit someone. My brother was just defending himself. That's right, it's just an animal. It bit me, so I can't fight back. We came to visit the pregnant woman. This stick was a gift for her to protect herself. Isn't that right? The man leered at me with a smile, his eyes carrying a cold threat. I gritted my teeth and stood up, letting them see the blood seeping from my C-section incision. They broke into my home and assaulted me. My dog was trying to save me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Officer, I won't settle this privately. I want to press charges. I want them to pay the price they deserve. I stared at them, my words firm and resolute. The man yelled at me, and Nina screamed that I was cold-blooded. I wiped away my tears. Cold-blooded. In their eyes, Snow was just a dog, but she was the family I raised with my own hands and had been by my side for 3 years. Every time I was sad or upset, she was there with me. My world is colorful, but her world only had me. I will pursue this. Not only will I pursue it, but I will also keep a close watch on them. Every day they live a good life is unacceptable to me. Holding her gradually stiffening body, I broke down in tears once again. By the time Frank arrived, I had already returned from giving my statement at the police station. With a stubbled beard and looking exhausted, he asked me, "Can't you let this go? Nina's family is very influential. All these years, our relationship has been one of mutual need. I needed the support of her family's influence. We can't afford to offend them." I stopped him from speaking. "I don't care if it was out of necessity or an uncontrollable passion. That's your business, but they shouldn't have come to provoke me, and they shouldn't have beaten Snow to death." At this point, I was still choking up. She was always so timid. Why did she have to lunge forward? I had already called the police by then. If she hadn't rushed forward, I might have only been slightly injured, and she wouldn't have lost her life. Frank opened his mouth, about to say something more, but I closed my eyes and said, "Let's get a divorce. Don't make me feel disgusted by you." The Cooper family indeed had some influence. They were quickly released. As soon as Nina was released, she posted her cousin's injury report, twisting Snow's bravery in protecting me into me condoning a vicious dog attack. The overwhelming public opinion nearly crushed me. My home was littered with trash. People pointed fingers at me on the streets, and some uninformed individuals even hurled insults at me. Even my child was maliciously cursed, forcing me to temporarily send my child to my best friend's house. I did not defend myself, allowing the situation to escalate. Until more and more people began paying attention to the matter, I hired a private investigator and discovered that Nina's father was a certain leader in the police department. After gathering sufficient evidence, I filed a lawsuit with the court. Before the trial began, I activated the live streaming feature on a certain app, purchased a trending topic, and publicly reported Nina's father for abusing his power for personal gain, shielding and enabling misconduct, as well as exposing Nina and her siblings for their arrogance, trespassing, and intentional harm. Fortunately, before the child was born, Frank was worried that something might happen during my pregnancy, so he installed cameras at home. the sudden turn of events silenced the public, and while feeling guilty, the netizens developed an even stronger resentment toward the instigator, turning their criticism toward the Cooper family. Several leaders who had only a nodding acquaintance with Cooper's father were also exposed for negative news and demoted. The Cooper family's backing subsequently collapsed, and Cooper's father was fired. Nina and her cousin were sentenced for the crime of intentional injury. In court, Nina and her cousin turned on each other, each claiming the other was the main perpetrator in an attempt to reduce their own sentences. In the end, they were given an additional year in prison and fined for disrupting the court proceedings. After all this was done, the divorce procedures between Frank and me were also finalized. When I moved out of the house, he tried to stop me, saying, "Can you give me another chance?" I coldly withdrew my hand from his. If only Snow could come back to life. When the veterinarian from the pet shop brought Snow's ashes over, I had just picked up the child and was holding them in my arms, trying to soothe them. Seeing the white porcelain urn in his hand, I couldn't help but feel my eyes well up with tears. "Don't be sad. She was a brave and good girl. Once she accumulates enough merit, she'll be able to be reborn as a human in her next life." The handsome veterinarian comforted me. I nodded at him. He scratched his head and handed me a ball of yarn. "I found this while cleaning up the shop. It was Snow's favorite toy." "If you don't want it, I want it," I said, taking the yarn ball from his hand and stroking its texture. "I want it, I often feed the stray dogs in the neighborhood." Snow was sent over by the mother dog I frequently feed. I knew right away that this little one had latched onto them. The mother dog and her 4 puppies are all ordinary Chinese native dogs, thin and small, while she, a Samoyed, was already as big as the mother dog at just 3 months old. The little one was probably abandoned by its previous owner because its vocal cords weren't well developed and it couldn't bark. Stray dogs live a life of uncertainty, never knowing when their next meal will come. Since she started following the mother dog, the other dogs have been getting thinner and thinner because she eats everything. The day the mother dog gave her to me, she ran off without looking back and even changed her usual roaming spots, afraid that I might bring the puppy back to her. She often squats at the spots where the mother dog used to stay, hoping to see her again. I am an orphan with no family, and from then on, Snow became my family. After meeting Frank, I said the same thing to him. He used to dislike dogs, but he was slowly changing. I thought we could spend our entire lives together. The neighborhood I live in is very hostile toward large dogs. Even though my Snow has a dog license, gets vaccinated on time, wears a leash every time we go out, and we always clean up after her, there are still unreasonable pedestrians who come over to criticize. Most of the time, I have no choice but to keep her at home. Sometimes she gets so restless that she tears up the house, but then she looks at me with those big, wet eyes, trying to win me over, and I just can't stay mad. Frank will drive her to find less crowded places for walks, and every time, I can see the excitement in Snow's eyes. She really likes Frank too, doesn't she? Yet in the end, it was this very man who caused her death. Some say I am heartless for pushing someone to the brink over a dog, but they don't realize that without that dog, the iron rod swung by Nina's cousin could have worsened my already fragile postpartum condition. Shouldn't the blame be on Nina and her family instead? As the other woman, she came to my door right after I gave birth, before I had even finished my postpartum recovery. What did I do wrong to deserve this kind of treatment? If the root of all this is simply Frank's affair, why is this man able to escape unscathed in the court of public opinion? But I don't have to deal with him. Nina's family is afraid of me and has placed the blame on him. For the rest of his life, he will live in fear, fleeing in panic under the Cooper family's retaliation. Time flies, and the waves caused by my affairs gradually subsided. The topics of conversation over tea and meals changed again and again. I moved back to my small house and used the assets I received from the divorce to run a small bubble tea shop. In my spare time, I often sit on the balcony of the living room, watching the sunlight pierce through the glass, wondering if my Snow has already returned to the dog star and whether she has adapted to life there. A ball of yarn rolled off the table and landed at my feet. As my son toddled toward me, he stepped on a ball of yarn, momentarily losing his balance. His bent waist froze in place before he slowly straightened up, as if something had supported him. I faintly heard a weak, hoarse whimper. The evening breeze brushed against the wind chimes, their clear sound seeming to bid me farewell. I picked up the child and stood up, my nose tingling with emotion. Extra story. Snow. After the flashing camera lights, a man hurried toward the woman blocked by reporters. a small knife hidden in his embrace. Wow! I howled, raising all my fur as I charged forward. With a bang, the man seemed to hit some invisible barrier, was thrown back violently, and fell to the ground, the knife in his embrace clattering out. What's going on? Someone pulled a knife at the courthouse entrance. Reporters swarmed in, shoving their cameras in the face of the man on the ground. While bailiffs rushed over and took the man away, Judy stood in place, touching her chest as if sensing something, and finally left. The guide looked helplessly at my increasingly transparent form. Stupid dog, if you protect her a few more times, you'll dissipate. Woof, dogs bark with woof, and besides, you're a spirit now. You can communicate with me. The guide looked utterly dumbfounded by my stupidity. I rolled my eyes at him and shook my fur. I want to protect Mom, the messenger sighed. She won't be in danger anymore. It's time for you to be reincarnated. No, I want to stay with Mom. I rolled around on the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. The messenger stepped back in disgust and tried to catch me like he was catching a pig, but I darted around nimbly, refusing to let him grab me. Be good, and you can be reborn as a human in your next life. What's so great about being human? Do they get to eat meat bones? I struggled violently. I don't want that. I want to stay by my mom's side forever. Finally, he gasped and waved the chain in his hand. Come with me. And I promise you'll meet her again in your next life. Really, if you don't come over now, what's real will turn fake. I scrambled to his side in a hurry, obediently letting him lock the chain around my neck. Though she might not recognize you. What? I couldn't believe it as I turned around, only to be met by an enormous, stinky foot that kicked me straight into the cycle of reincarnation. As I stood there with a sign hanging around my neck, being stared at by everyone, I finally understood what he meant. I had actually turned into a cat. Well, what am I supposed to do now? Mom is afraid of cats. I was being picked over out of sheer boredom. Mom, look, this cat is so interesting. It has paw-shaped markings on its fur. The little boy's clear voice rang out. I couldn't help but grind my teeth. Not at all. I bit down on my own snow-white tail. I never expected this little thing to dare run away. I, Lord Snow, will not let it off lightly. Mom is so stupid. Let's buy her. The boy's voice interrupted my actions. I twitched my ears. That won't do. I'm Mom's. I was about to show my claws to scare them as usual when I heard a gentle voice say, Mom doesn't like cats. I stopped and turned around, and there in my sight was the face I had been longing for day and night. Meow. With tears in my eyes, I threw myself into her arms. My sharp claws gently grasped the edge of her clothes, just as I had done countless times before, and I nuzzled against her shoulder. Her stiff body gradually softened, and her scent was still as comforting as ever. Mom, I'm back. Moi, Easter egg. Hello everyone. I have a new name, Ugly Duckling. This was given by my troublesome little brother. My brother is called Jasper, and he's 4 years old now. Although I'm still a little kitten, I am his older sister after all. So what can I do? I just have to spoil him. I returned home and inspected my territory, and indeed, there were no traces of other cats or dogs. Well, in that case, I can let go of the grievance I felt when Mom almost abandoned me. I want to rub and rub, covering the whole house with my fur, so that no cats or dogs outside dare to come near. I also want to pee like crazy, making the entire room carry my scent. Besides that, I'd patrol every night to prevent any thieves from climbing through the windows. I'm so busy, and no one in this household is reliable. Oh, this family will fall apart sooner or later without me. Doesn't Mom patrol every day? They're making me work at such a young age. I try my best to puff out my tiny chest, but sometimes a 3-month-old kitten still stumbles when walking. I tried my best to suppress my urge to dance in the middle of the night, not wanting to disturb my mom and brother. After finally confirming that there were no thieves around, I wearily returned to bed and nudged my brother's face away with my butt. Ugh, so smelly. My brother muttered in his sleep and rolled over. Humph. If you don't give me a bath when you come back, you'll stink to death. Snow, mumbling came from behind. I turned around and gently kissed my mother's furrowed brow. She seemed to sense something. Her brow slowly relaxed, and a smile appeared in her sleep. I'm going to cuddle with Mom. Good night. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.